Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Wednesday, the 14th September, and match day 2 in the Champions League of 2022-2023 has just come to an end. We saw some pretty interesting games today, but James, I want to go back first and just go back to the games that happened on Tuesday. Obviously, the main game being a Barcelona versus Bayern Munich, the kind of homecoming of Robert Lewandowski. But I'll be honest with you, I'm just going to go down the list. And I think our best bet, we can just react and maybe talk about some storylines from each of the games. We can talk about a game for 5 seconds, talk about a game for a couple of minutes, depends kind of how interesting the game is. So first of all, Victoria Pilsen against Inter Milan. Inter Milan win 2-0. Any thoughts on that game? I mean, obviously the kind of fascinating thing on that game now at the moment, especially looking at the table for that one as well, you got Bayern with 6 points, then you got Barcelona and Inter both with 3 points. You and I both, I think, picked Bayern to go through top, Barcelona and Inter to go through as kind of competing for second. I think we ended up both picking Barcelona. Mm-hmm. Do you think Inter have a shot here of getting through, first of all?
From what I've seen against Bayern and Barcelona, I don't think so. I feel like the Italian teams this year are going to really struggle to find a representative going into the knockout stages, if I'm being truthfully honest. Again, Victoria Pilsen are going to be the whipping boys of this whole of that whole group there. Everyone's going to look forward to playing against them and racking up some goals. If they can manage to get a win or two, or even a point, that would be great for them. But again, Inter Milan expected to win, did win. The one thing I want to say about the game, Jack, Edin Dzeko going at, I don't know what age, I think plus 35 or something like that.
Right.
Still looking as bright as ever. Incredible finish, and also I think he had an assist in there too. He's still going. Fair play to him.
Yeah, look, Inter need to kind of make hay while the sun shines there, for sure. Especially, Lautaro Martinez is still sticking around, and obviously you've got the returning Lukaku as well. But yeah, enough said about that game. Poor old Victoria Pilsen. Great for their players, great for their fans. Being able to play Internazionale, that's big achievement. And especially if they can score a goal or get a result. Bulgarian champions Ludogorets beating Roma, for example. Moving on to the next game, maybe a little more to talk about here. In Lisbon, Sporting Lisbon beating Spurs 2-0. Now, I'm going to just get it up on my phone here, but I believe we had a couple late goals on this one. So you had Paulinho scoring in the 90th minute and Arthur scoring in the 93rd minute. I remember because I was going to watch the later evening games at the pub with a couple of friends. And one of my friends went, yeah, Sporting Lisbon drawing 0-0 to Spurs. That's kind of interesting. And then we checked the TV and it was 2-0 and we wondered what the hell had happened. How much of a worry and kind of a concern is that for you, do you reckon, James, with Spurs losing?
I think a massive concern. Like, Jack, the crazy thing about Spurs this year is that they haven't played well. They haven't played well, but if you can not play well and win 60, 70, around 50 games in a season, fair play to you. I feel like they're going to struggle to do that on a regular basis. For me, I really don't know what's going on with them. And like, you look at certain players struggling to find their form, like Human Son. Like, for Tottenham to be successful, they need him firing. At this moment in time, he's not firing in front of goal right now. Will he get dropped? Is like Richarlison going to take his place? I know Richarlison did play there, but I think Conte finding that balance is to me, it might be a big issue. But
yeah,
we mentioned something, Jack, at the start of everything in Conte's Champions League record. I think in his last 35 games, he's won 13, lost 12, drawn drawn the rest. That's not impressive for a guy that you claim to be all top 3, top 2 managers in the world. I feel like is a big issue for him, and you still kind of expect Tottenham to qualify. But based on the first 2 games, bear in mind, Jack, it took a sending off for them to really get hold of the game in the first game against Marseille, and today losing 2-0. I feel like it's a bit of a worry if I'm a Tottenham fan. And also, big shout out to Marcus Edwards. He looked very impressive there.
He did, and that would have been a nice night for him. I think the one beauty about their group is that obviously it's so competitive, James. Right? There's no real kind of like whipping boy, as we like to say, in that group there. Each game, I think each team is capable of beating each team, and I think that this week's recent results have proven that. I will say that neither you or I picked Sporting Lisbon, but they're the ones with 2 wins out of 2 and 6 points on top. Me picking Frankfurt, you picking Marseille, both of those in 3rd and 4th position respectively. So I do think that Spurs will be able to get lucky because, yeah, I think Frankfurt and Marseille will be able to beat Sporting Lisbon on one of these game weeks. So I think that top spot will still certainly be open. But again, they want to be the ones in control of doing that. Moving on, though, to a couple of the other games, Liverpool managed to, I'd say it was reasonably close, like kind of very close based on the reactions while I was in the pub yesterday. Liverpool 2, Ajax Amsterdam 1. Obviously a much weaker Ajax Amsterdam team here as well. Liverpool, I mean, by kind of all accounts, especially from what I'm seeing, didn't seem kind of massively in control of that game. And I guess by the scoreline, you'd say that was the case as well. Obviously getting the result. Any concerns about Liverpool? I mean, I know it's not been the greatest start of the season domestically, but how do you think they'll fare in Europe?
Again, big win for Liverpool. You mentioned it was a close, Jack. It was very close. In
89th minute winner from Matip, yeah.
And bear in mind the ball was cleared off the line. It was, I know it went to goal line technology and like the ball was in, but it wasn't as, let's say, free flowing as you would expect from Liverpool. I think the interesting thing about that game was that Liverpool were able to win, I think, 70% of their aerial duels from corners. So at some point they were going to take advantage of like the amount of corners, amount of headers that they were winning from corners at some point, and like they were able to do that. But Jack, overall, if you're Ajax in this situation here, you should feel like, yeah, we lost, but we also could have won that game. If you remember, Jack Daly Blind has a great chance around the back post, Trent's area again, to win the game for Ajax, and the ball just went wide for a routine header for a player like Daily Blind. So Ajax will be disappointed, but Liverpool sometimes just about just getting the win, getting getting the confidence in the fact that, could you imagine if they don't win this game, especially with the rest of the games they have left. But decent win for Liverpool. You kind of move on, and just another win, bit of relief for Jurgen Klopp.
Especially at Anfield, those are blue chip, priceless kind of fixtures. You need to be winning those ones. In the words of Arsene Wenger, that's the hardest place to go in European competition, let alone European competition. For Arsene Wenger, he experienced it multiple times a year, in domestic cups and leagues as well. Moving on, though, Bayern Munich, the great homecoming of the great Robert Lewandowski, 2-0 in the end to Bayern Munich, who did look just kind of a little bit of a class above. I watched this game. This was the game that I kind of had my full focus on. I don't think the scoreline really gave kind of credit to the result. Barcelona looked dangerous. There was a couple of opportunities where you kind of thought like, oh, they kind of should be scoring here. Robert Lewandowski had like 3 or 4 decent opportunities where him on a different day would score a hat-trick. So again, I'm not overly worried for Barcelona. It's a shame they couldn't take advantage of that. And obviously, it's a shame Lewandowski couldn't score his goal. But man, when they get into that rhythm and they create kind of an attacking bit of play, they do look really, really nice. And you can just tell going forward with the development of Gavi, with the development of Pedri, James, Ousmane Dembele looks really good. And it's the first time I've been able to say that in like 5 years. So I don't know what they've done in terms of his training, his diet, anything that he's choosing to do or not to do. But if that man can play some consistent football, we'll be able to see him at his best. And we know he's capable of big, big things as well and can play a major part for Barcelona. Ansu Fati looked lively. Again, Bayern just took advantage of the better kind of opportunities there, and it was a quick flurry. So you had Lucas Hernandez score in the 50th minute, Leroy Sané score in the 54th minute. So kind of a quick double salvo there in a 5-minute period. But James, Leon Goretzka on the bench, Matis de Ligt on the bench. This Bayern team is stacked. And I'll be honest with you, any sort of fixture congestion that may take place due to the World Cup, European competition, they're going to be fine. I'm telling you, they're going to be fine.
I feel like if you're Barca, you're kicking yourself, because I feel in play was very seesaw. Both teams had the opportunities to take advantage in like certain areas, but when you look at like key opportunities and big chances there, you mentioned Robert Lewandowski. He has 2 chances that he usually swallows up. He doesn't score them, and if Robert Lewandowski ain't taking them sort of chances there, you're gonna have a difficult night. And then like and like then when I see Pedro goes clean through on goal and tries to lift it over Mano Neuer and hits the post, you just know the Barcelona is just not going to be their day. Bayern had a quick flurry, scored off a set piece, and then a phenomenal goal from Leroy Sané. The control and like the speed to penetrate that gap, and once he gets into the area, it was a nice finish. But Bayern, it's like more of a game where, personally, when I look at it, it was more of a snatch and grab than anything else. They get their goal, take advantage, get the second goal, and Barcelona kind of knock the stuffing out of Barcelona. If you're Xavi, on the other hand, you would be encouraged by the performance, but again, you want to be winning these games.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing with Bayern. It's why I'm always keen to pick them to win the Champions League because the talent is undeniable. The talent is right up there with absolutely anybody else in Europe. PSG, Real Madrid, you name it. You know, player for player, they can come to that fight and they'll win in quite a few of those positions. It's that mentality side. It's coming away from the Bundesliga where they're going to win every week and they're probably going to be in the best position to succeed every single year domestically. It's can they transfer that to Europe? We've seen it occasionally, but not maybe as much as the higher ups there would have wanted. Porto. James, Porto is a team that we both had going through. They got shellacked by Club Brugge 4-0. In terms of looking at the table here as well, one thing I will say, a little bit of a saving grace here. Brugge are top, which is wild, but second and third position, Bayer Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid are on 2 points. Porto on 1 point. So it's not, not all hope is lost for Porto here. They'll still be able to kind of, hopefully for the, you're on my sake, be able to fight their way through to getting through this group. But yeah, man, Bruges kind of embarrassing Porto there in Portugal.
Jack, the biggest thing in Portugal, like, can you see Porto going to Belgium and winning?
Probably not.
It's Jack. We may say like they have a chance, but damn, like out of all teams I see leaking opportunities, I wouldn't think Porto would have been one against, especially a team like Club Brugge. Quite a shock result, if I'm being honest, Jack.
Yeah, look, and again, that's going to be kind of an interesting group. Atletico Madrid, I think they're in this weird transition phase, and they've got a handful of players who I feel a little bit sorry for as well because, I'll drop the name like João Felix. This is a guy who should be hitting the peaks of his powers, but Atletico Madrid are kind of distracted at the moment. It feels a little bit like what's going to go on with Antoine Griezmann's future, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. Is Diego Simeone going to be there? Blah blah blah. A lot of distractions for Atletico Madrid, which make me feel like they're not going to be a real contender in La Liga or in Europe this year at the moment. Moving on to the next game. This was kind of an interesting game, especially from mine and James in terms of our picks, because James picked Marseille going through. I'm not going to lie. When he said that, I was a little bit nervous. I can't deny it because I can easily see a team like Marseille going through with their plan over the summer. I picked Eintracht Frankfurt. Eintracht Frankfurt were able to sneak the win in Marseille just by 1-0. James, I'm sure that you did not watch full 90 minutes of this game, but I mean, any kind of takes on how that affects Marseille's chances of getting through?
2 out of 2 losses right now. They're gonna have to pull out something special to win, and maybe they might look out from the point of view is like their next 2 games will be against Sporting Lisbon. How much confidence would they take from the fact that Sporting is 2 for 2? So I don't know, Jack. I feel like Marseille again, another team. Looks like they might struggle to get through. I think I've got that one wrong, Jack. Maybe. Let's see.
Yeah, I was going to say, you never know. If Club Brugge are spanking teams away from home 4-0, then I feel like there's really no way to tell. We obviously just kind of came off that group, but Bayer Leverkusen at home, a 2-0, reasonably convincing victory against Atletico Madrid. The one thing I do want to say here is that this is, and we even talked about this when we did our predictions, Bayer Leverkusen are one of these classic teams of if they hadn't sold anybody, what they would have kind of had, right? They've still got some serious players. Like, let's not, get it twisted here at all. So Moussa Diaby's there, Hluzek's there, Callum Hudson-Odoi's obviously playing. You got Patrick Schick there as well. Demirbay, Jonathan Tah's there as well. The goalkeeper's position is strong. But a 2-0 win against Atletico Madrid, James, that must have been a bit of a shock for you.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the game, there was one decision from VAR where I think it was Atletico Madrid took a shot and hit one of the Bayern Leverkusen players on the hand, and I wasn't sure why it wasn't given because the ball traveled quite a long way. So Atletico might feel a certain way about that. Going back to that, Leverkusen had this crazy opportunity where, like, Jack, they hit the post twice in the space of one sequence. But as you mentioned with Atletico right now, you don't really know what's going on with them. It seems to be like a weird thing with this Griezmann thing, especially I happen to bring him on at the 60th minute every single time.
Morata, James, as well. We don't know what his deal is, but you look at that midfield: Marcus Llorente, Saul, like Koke. There's still real talent there, but it's just whether they can get it taken over. Shakhtar Donetsk, Celtic 1-1 across the board on that one. Fascinating game, especially with a team like Celtic going to a team like Shakhtar. Any kind of thoughts on that game? I mean, I think you and I are quite low on Celtic's chances of going through, but any thoughts on that?
Fair play to Celtic for, to me, even battling a point in this situation here. when I look at Celtic, I feel like they've always struggled in recent years, especially in European competitions. And you asked me who had the best opportunity of going through between Celtic and Rangers, and I said Rangers all the way here. I think it was impressive that they were able to get a point away to Shakhtar, and we know how many big teams have struggled to go to Shakhtar and get a result. So fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on as well to Italy, to Milan, getting the 3-1 win over Dinamo Zagreb. You know, a talented Dinamo Zagreb team. But again, James, I think looking at this group, you got Salzburg in there. We saw what they were able to do. We'll get to that game a little bit later, but against Chelsea. But this is a game they needed to win. Right, if Milan are going to get through these stages, which I think you and I both didn't necessarily think they would, but if we think Milan are going to get through, they need to win at home against Dinamo Zagreb. Try their hand away. Any more confidence? So it's a draw against Salzburg, a home win against Dinamo Zagreb. They're on 4 points through 2 games. That's got to be pretty promising for Milan.
I mean, if you're Milan right now, looking at the table, you feel very, very, very confident.
Right.
I feel like they're one of the Italian teams that does have the chance of like going through. We know how big of a sleeping giant this team is. I think it's going to take a bit of time for them to get their European pedigree back to what it was, but I feel like they'll feel very confident to get through to the next round, Jack.
Rangers beaten by Napoli 3-0, held on as long as they could. But again, I think, James, you and I both picked Napoli to go through. This is kind of, in a way, this is weirdly the strongest European option that Italy has to offer in Napoli with that kind of new, the guys, there's no more Lorenzo Insigne, there's no more Dries Mertens knocking around there. This is kind of a different team that Naples are offering here. But yeah, 3-0 win, pretty convincing. And I'd say that's going to be pretty cut and dry for them getting through here as well. Moving on.
The one thing for me in that game, the red card played a big part.
Huge part
in Napoli getting
and the retaken penalty, very weird. Moving on though to London, West London. We will touch on this a little bit later in a video, but we'll quickly just fire over Chelsea versus RB Salzburg. 1-1. Graham Potter's first ever game in the Champions League, first ever game at Chelsea. James, how kind of worried should we be here? Keeping in mind that obviously we'll get into this in a bit more detail later.
I feel like Chelsea just look at the table right now and think, okay, bottom of the table, failed to get wins in our last 2 games, especially when you look at this game, it's a winnable game for Chelsea. The fact that they're dropping points, if I was them, I would be really worried knowing the fact that the next 2 games is against AC Milan, both home and away, and it's almost like a must-win, Jack. I feel Chelsea will struggle to get anything if they're not able to pick up, to me, a minimum of 4 points in these next 2 games. So I feel like it's a big loss for Chelsea, not being able to win and pick up all 3 points in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Real Madrid 2-0 win against RB Leipzig. This is exactly what Real Madrid need to be doing in the group that they got. This was kind of easy pickings for them. They should really go through as top of this group. And guys, it's 2 wins from 2. Again, it doesn't always look the most pretty thing in the world, but again, we know what this Real Madrid team are capable of. And again, for me, people may have PSG. I'm taking Real Madrid until I get proven otherwise to win this competition.
I feel the one thing about Real Madrid is making me very interested. We talk about Vinicius, Benzema, who Benzema is missing right now. The fact that they're able to get results without the best striker or what people consider to be the best player in the world, to me, is just testament to how great this Real Madrid team is. But a big thing for me is like Freddy Valverde. We talk about your Modric, your Toni Kroos, your Vinicius, and all these guys. This guy's been an unsung hero in so many big games for Real Madrid last season, even this season. He's coming up big, having big performances, playing out of position and just performing all the time, not moaning. Played a big part for Real Madrid today. Scored an amazing goal, and he's just in the past few months and weeks, he's been fantastic for Real Madrid.
Yeah, nuts. Quick game here, Copenhagen versus Sevilla. I think we know that, historically anyway, that we'd have Man City and Dortmund as kind of the main 2 going through here. Draws are not what you want. If you're in that 3rd and 4th position, you need to pick up wins against that team who's going to be 4th or going to be 3rd. And a draw here does no favors to Copenhagen or Sevilla. Moving on to Turin, though. Juventus, James and I both pretty down on them, kind of expectedly so. Benfica winning 2-1, and again, Max Allegri's side just does not look, it's just a bit of a mess. We can get into this maybe in more detail in a future video, but yeah, this Allegri team and this Juventus team is not the old lady of old.
Struggling big time.
Maccabi, Haifa, looking good at one point, right? I think they went ahead. Let me just double check that. I think they
Yes,
went ahead.
yes.
Yep, went ahead to begin with. Great. Must have been an amazing feeling. But then three assassins all get their share of the goals. Leo Messi, Kylian Mbappe, and Neymar wrap up a pretty easy routine win for Paris Saint-Germain. James, any thoughts on that game?
Again, seeing all the front three scores, always a good sign for PSG. To me, the biggest thing that I see is Neymar, Jack. He's looking so sharp right now. When he gets in front of goal, you think it's gonna go in. Unlike to me, the past few seasons, he looks sharp in front of goal now, and he's looking good leading up to that World Cup. But if I'm PSG right now, it's good to see my front three score.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's against a team that you really know you should be beaten. But again, regardless, this is a professional football team who's qualified for the Champions League. So these are no slouches, regardless of what you say. The big kind of game, I guess, of today anyway, Man City at home against Borussia Dortmund. Man City do end up getting the win. But James, that Jude Bellingham goal, I'm sure some Man City fans had their hearts in their mouths.
Yeah, I feel like uh, Dortmund done really well to stifle Manchester City and stop them from playing interestingly enough for Manchester City. Like Jack, the first shot on target came in the 80th minute, and that's unlike Manchester City to only have a shot in the 80th minute. But the biggest thing for me that is scary, Jack, is that this is the first time you've seen a Pep Guardiola team show a bit of grit. Usually, how many times, especially during the Guardiola's time, you see Manchester City go a goal down, 2 goals down, and come back? You don't see that a lot.
No.
Nowadays, they can go 2 down, they can go 1 down, and no matter what time it is, they'll find a way to get a result. And that to me is going to be a big thing going into the knockout stage.
100%. And James, again, I think the kind of poster child of that would have been Haaland's goal. I mean, guys, I said this to friends in group chats. There aren't very many people on the planet right now who can put a ball like that into that kind of area. And there are very few people in the history of the sport who can finish in an opportunity like that as well. So that Cancelo to Haaland goal was very scary. That operates outside
that
of
was
tactical.
that was Zlatan-esque finished, just it was
100%.
incredible.
Moving on to kind of the next game week, though, we've got some kind of interesting matchups coming. Ajax Amsterdam against Napoli. Inter going to be at home welcoming Barcelona to town. Chelsea Milan is going to be one coming up here as well. Real Madrid Shakhtar will be somewhat interesting as well. Benfica PSG as well. James, how are you feeling just generally about how the Champions League is going at the moment?
I wouldn't say predictable, but I'm not going shock. Yeah, I feel like Chelsea might be in a bit of a worry. Yes, Liverpool, but you still expect these teams to more than likely qualify when everything's said and done.
100%. Guys, let us know what you thought of the games this week, some of the goals, some of the results. Drop a like on the video if you like what you've seen as well. Make sure you're subscribed as well while you're down there as well. And until next time, me and James, we'll see you.